To get the most out of this video, follow the subtitles while listening to the narration in English. Use headphones to better capture the pronunciation and intonation. Try repeating the words and phrases out loud as this will help reinforce memorization.
The city was wrapped in a quiet blanket of snow as the train pulled into downtown Chicago. Beside the frosted window, soft flakes drifted lazily through the morning sky. A woman in her early 30s with curly brown hair, warm hazel eyes, and light brown skin pressed her gloved hand against the glass. Her breath fogged the window slightly. She smiled. It was her first solo trip in over a year, and she was finally here. Pulling her coat tighter around her, she stepped onto the platform, suitcase wheels crunching lightly over slushy concrete. Cold bit at her nose, but she didn't mind. There was something magical about snowy cities, like time moved a little slower. She opened her phone and checked the Airbnb address one more time. It was a small brownstone in a quiet neighborhood not far from here. Should be easy to find, she whispered to herself. The rideshare car pulled up within minutes. She slid into the back seat, welcomed by a blast of warm air and the faint sound of holiday music playing softly. The driver, a man in his 50s with a gentle Chicago accent, asked, "First time in the city?" "Yeah," she replied with a grin. "I've always wanted to come in the winter." "Well, you picked the right day. Snow like this? It's rare to catch it so peaceful." As they drove, she stared out the window, watching the snow settle on rooftops and trees. Her thoughts drifted about how she'd been needing this break, how nice it would be to finally unwind. And maybe meet someone new along the way. Travel had a way of surprising you. They arrived at a tree-lined street of nearly identical houses, each one charming, brick-lined, and dusted with fresh snow. The driver helped her with her luggage and offered a quick "good luck" before driving off. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment, double-checking the address. 1241 North Maple. She spotted the number above the door, 1241. Perfect. Marching up the few steps, suitcase in tow, she rang the bell. A moment passed, and then she heard footsteps inside. The door creaked open slowly. A man in his late 30s, tall, with sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, and wearing flannel pajama pants and a confused expression, peeked through the crack. "Hi," he said slowly. She smiled politely. "Hi. I'm here for the Airbnb. I think this is the place." He blinked. "Airbnb? I don't think so. This is my house." Her cheeks flushed. "Oh, wait, is this not 1241 North Maple?" "It is," he said, now opening the door wider, clearly puzzled but not unkind. "But I didn't list anything on Airbnb." The awkward silence hung in the snowy air between them. Then, just as she was about to double-check the confirmation email again, she heard another door open just a few steps away. A woman called out, "Are you looking for the Airbnb?" She turned. Another brownstone. Nearly identical. The number above it read 1241B. Her eyes widened. "Oh no." The man laughed, the tension breaking. "Looks like you're my neighbor's guest. It happens more than you'd think." She let out a relieved laugh. "Well, I guess I owe you an apology and maybe a coffee." He chuckled. Only if you don't ring my doorbell at 7 a.m. tomorrow, too. They both smiled. Correct brownstone felt just as cozy as the listing had promised. Inside, soft lighting and warm wooden floors welcomed her in. A kind woman in her 50s with salt and pepper hair and a gentle smile handed her the keys and showed her around. The room was small but charming, brick walls, a fluffy comforter, and a window that framed the snowy street like a painting. Through unpacking, she sat on the bed for a moment, taking a deep breath. She finally felt like she could exhale. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her best friend. "How's Chicago so far?" She smiled and replied. "I knocked on the wrong door and met a stranger in pajama pants. So things are off to a great start." Grinning face with sweat. Clock read 4:30 p.m., and the sun was already slipping behind the rooftops. She threw on her coat and scarf and stepped back outside. The air had grown colder, crisp and sharp. She walked slowly, exploring the neighborhood, a small cafe here, a bookstore there. Everything had that winter stillness, like the city was holding its breath. And then, as if drawn by instinct, she spotted a little coffee shop on the corner. It looked like something out of a movie, golden lights glowing inside, condensation on the windows, and the faint sound of jazz drifting out as someone opened the door. She didn't hesitate. Inside the cafe, the air was thick with warmth and the rich scent of roasted beans. Couples and small groups chatted over steaming mugs. A fireplace crackled gently in one corner. It was cozy, calm, exactly what she'd been hoping to find. She ordered a chai latte and turned to look for a table. Most of the seats were taken except for one. And sitting there, book in hand, was the same man from earlier, the one she'd accidentally woken up. He looked up just as she spotted him. Their eyes met, and she gave a sheepish smile. "Guess we're neighbors and coffee shop regulars now," she said, approaching his table. He laughed, putting his book down. "At this point, I'm starting to think you're following me." She laughed too. "Honestly, I just wanted to make up for the awkward doorbell incident." He gestured to the empty seat. "Well then, let's call it even. I'm Alex, by the way." She sat down. "Nice to officially meet you. I'm Claire." They started to chat, lightly at first. Where she was from. What brought her to Chicago? What he did for work. There was something easy about the way they spoke, like the city's quiet had created a little space just for this. By the time their drinks were empty, the windows had fogged up from the warmth inside. The snow was falling again, heavier this time. "I should probably head back," Claire said, glancing at the time. "But thanks. This was a good surprise." Alex nodded. "Likewise. Maybe we'll bump into each other again." She smiled as she stood. "I have a feeling we might." She stepped out into the snow, cheeks warm, heart lighter. The next morning, Claire awoke to a soft, white world. Snow had covered the streets overnight, layering the trees and rooftops like frosting. It was her first real snowfall in years, and something about it made her feel like a child again. She wrapped herself in a thick sweater, brewed some instant coffee, and sat by the window, watching people shuffle past in heavy coats and boots. For once, there was no rush, no meetings, no deadlines. Just a quiet winter morning in a city that felt brand new. Later, she bundled up and ventured out, wandering through Lincoln Park. The air smelled of pine and cold earth. Every breath she took felt fresh, like it was cleaning her from the inside out. Dogs chased snowballs. Kids built tiny snowmen on the corners. She stopped by the lake and stared out at the frozen water. A flock of birds darted across the gray sky. She took out her phone and snapped a photo, writing a caption for her sister. Not lost. Just wandering. Cloud. Felt good not to be on a schedule. The trip was supposed to be for job hunting, sure, but she was beginning to wonder if it could be something more. On the way back, she passed the coffee shop again. This time, she didn't go in. Just seeing the familiar golden glow through the window made her smile. That evening, Claire decided to try a little jazz bar a few blocks away. A friend had mentioned it in passing, and she figured, why not? The sign above the entrance flickered softly. The velvet note. Inside, it was dim and dreamy. Velvet curtains hung along the walls, and a small trio played in the corner, stand-up bass, piano, and saxophone. The room was filled with murmurs and music, the kind that made your shoulders relax and your heart slow down. She ordered a drink and found a seat near the back. The waiter brought a little candle to her table, and she pulled out a notebook, doodling absent-mindedly as the music wrapped around her. Then came a tap on her shoulder. She turned, and there he was again. Alex, wearing a navy sweater and that same slightly amused expression. "You're definitely following me now," he said. She laughed. "What can I say? I have great taste in hot drinks and music." He asked if he could join her, and she nodded. It didn't feel odd at all. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. They listened to the music together, speaking in hushed tones between sets. He told her about the first time he heard live jazz as a teenager, how it made him feel like time had stopped. She shared how writing helped her make sense of the world, even when everything felt upside down. And somewhere in the middle of all that, the silence between them stopped feeling like silence. It felt like comfort. As the band played its final song, Alex leaned closer and whispered, "This is turning into quite a week, huh?" Claire smiled, her eyes warm. "And it's only just begun." Sighed, the snow was still falling. The next morning, Claire found herself sitting at a small table in the coffee shop again, her usual now by the window. A notebook lay open in front of her, but instead of writing, she was tracing the edge of her cup with one finger, lost in thought. She hadn't expected to run into Alex again. Twice, in two very different places, it felt like the kind of thing that only happened in stories. And yet, here she was, playing their encounters back in her mind, each moment vivid, each word still warm. When the barista brought over her latte, she smiled and asked, "You meeting someone?" Claire shook her head. "Just the page." But part of her wondered, what if? Sighed, the city was waking up slowly. The sidewalks were still icy, and people moved carefully, their breath floating around them in little clouds. Claire tapped her pen against the notebook, then began to write. She didn't write about jobs or deadlines. She wrote about chance meetings, about warm jazz and falling snow, about the way a simple question, "Can I join you?" could open a door she didn't know was there. As she finished a page, the bell above the door jingled. She didn't need to look up. She just knew. "Third time's the charm," Alex said, brushing snow from his coat. Claire looked up, pretending to be surprised. "Now I know you're following me." He laughed and slid into the chair across from her. "I was hoping I'd run into you again." There was a pause, the kind that could have been awkward but wasn't. "I've been thinking," Claire said, "about how we all carry stories around. And sometimes when we're lucky, someone else walks into them." Alex nodded, resting his hands on the table. "Or maybe we walk into theirs." Later that day, Claire checked her email on a whim while walking back to her apartment. She nearly dropped her phone. An invitation. A local creative agency had found her online portfolio and wanted to meet her the next morning. It wasn't her dream job, but it was something. She stood still on the sidewalk, her breath catching. After all the silence, after the long months of waiting and wondering, something had finally shifted. She called her sister as soon as she got home. "I thought you were taking a break from all that," her sister teased. "I was. But maybe the universe had other plans." That night, Claire couldn't sleep. Her thoughts spun in loops, what to say, what to wear, whether she was ready. She hadn't planned to apply for anything yet, but this opportunity felt different. Less like pressure, more like possibility. She arrived at the agency early, wearing a simple navy dress and her lucky earrings. The office was bright, filled with plants and sunlight. The interviewer, a woman named Jules, greeted her with a firm handshake and a kind smile. They didn't talk about numbers or resumes right away. Instead, Jules asked, "What's the most unexpected story you've ever told?" And without thinking, Claire said, "The one I didn't plan to write but walked into instead." They laughed. And for the first time in months, Claire didn't feel like she was trying to prove herself. She felt like she belonged. When she stepped back outside, the snow had stopped. The city felt quiet again, but this time it didn't feel lonely. It felt full of doors waiting to open. The next few days were a blur of interviews, emails, and small victories. Claire had received an offer from the creative agency just 2 days after her first meeting with Jules. She hadn't expected it to be so quick, but it felt like the perfect fit, like a new chapter that was ready to be written. She was walking back to her apartment from her second meeting when she caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. Alex was standing at a street corner, holding a coffee cup, his gaze fixed on the street ahead. He hadn't seen her yet, so Claire paused just for a moment to take in the scene. The way the city looked around him, how the sunlight danced off the glass of the skyscrapers, casting long shadows over the busy streets. For a brief second, the world seemed to slow. When he turned and saw her, his expression lit up. "Hey, Claire. You're everywhere these days," he said with a laugh. Claire smiled, a little shy. "I'm starting to feel like I'm everywhere, too." They walked together for a few blocks, the conversation easy and flowing as always. It was strange how natural it felt to be around Alex, like they were both in the right place at the right time. "So, what's new with you?" he asked, his voice warm. "I got a job offer," she said, almost in disbelief. "Really? That's amazing, Claire. Congratulations." "I know, right? I don't know what to think yet. It's exciting, but—" her voice trailed off, and Alex noticed the hesitation in her tone. But Claire paused. It's just a step. It's not everything I dreamed of, you know? I've spent so much time wondering about the big picture, and now it's just this. Alex nodded, understanding. Sometimes the small steps are the most important ones. They get you where you need to go. Claire thought about that for a moment. It wasn't just the job that mattered. It was the journey, the path that had led her to this point. The unexpected moments, people she met along the way, the small steps. The following week, Claire stood in front of the agency's doors, a little nervous but eager. She had accepted the offer, and now it was time to begin. The world outside seemed to buzz with energy, the kind of energy that always reminded Claire of the way she felt when she was on the edge of something new. As she entered the office, Jules greeted her with a smile. "Welcome aboard, Claire," she said, handing her a welcome packet. "We're glad to have you here." It wasn't a perfect start. There were new systems to learn, new faces to remember, and a dozen little challenges to face each day. But it didn't matter. Every challenge felt like a small victory, and each day she felt herself growing, learning, and stepping into a version of herself she hadn't yet met. On her second day, Claire sat down at her desk and opened her email. There was a message from Alex. The subject line read, "Good luck with the new adventure." She smiled as she read his message. There was something about his words that made her feel even more certain that she was on the right path. Later that week, she took a walk to clear her head. She didn't know where she was going, but she didn't need to. There was no rush anymore. No deadline. Just the feeling that everything was falling into place. As Claire stood at the edge of the park, looking at the skyline, she realized that sometimes it was the leap of faith, the little moments of courage that led to the biggest changes. She had taken a step into the unknown, and it was more than enough. Claire's first month at the agency had flown by in a whirlwind of projects, meetings, and small victories. She had settled into her routine, and although it wasn't without its challenges, she felt more and more confident every day. Her colleagues were supportive, and the work itself was fulfilling. It was a new chapter, one that was both exciting and a little intimidating. One afternoon, as Claire sat at her desk, typing up an email, Jules came over with a smile. "Hey, Claire," she said, her voice light. "How are you feeling about everything so far?" Claire leaned back in her chair, thinking for a moment. "It's good. Busy, but good. I'm still getting used to everything." "That's completely normal. The first month is always the hardest," Jules replied, her tone reassuring. "You're doing great, though. Don't doubt yourself." Claire smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. It was nice to hear that from Jules, especially considering how much pressure she had been putting on herself. It was easy to forget that growth didn't always happen overnight. As the day went on, Claire found herself more comfortable in her role. She had developed a rhythm, a flow that made her feel at ease. But even with the steady routine, there was still something exciting about it all. Each day brought something new, something to learn. That evening, she went out for a walk, trying to clear her head after a particularly long day. She found herself at a small cafe she hadn't noticed before. It was quiet, with soft lighting and a calm atmosphere, and Claire decided to stop in for a coffee. As she sat at a corner table, sipping her drink, Claire thought about how far she had come. The job, the move to the city, the challenges she had faced. Everything seemed to have fallen into place. She smiled to herself, realizing that the unknown wasn't so scary after all. It was just part of the journey. A few days later, Claire received an invitation to a networking event. It was from one of the senior designers at the agency, someone she'd worked with on a recent project. Claire hesitated at first. She wasn't the most outgoing person, and the idea of mingling with strangers made her nervous. But she knew it was part of the job, building connections, meeting new people. So she decided to go. The event was held in a sleek, modern space downtown. The lighting was dim, and the atmosphere was filled with the hum of conversation and clinking glasses. Claire stepped inside, her nerves creeping up, but she reminded herself that this was just another step in her journey. She could do this. As she walked into the crowd, she immediately spotted a few familiar faces from the agency. She joined them, chatting casually about recent projects and industry trends. Felt good to be a part of the conversation, even if she wasn't the most talkative one in the group. Then, she noticed someone standing off to the side, looking a little out of place. He was tall, with dark hair and a warm smile that seemed to invite conversation. Claire felt a pull of curiosity. She didn't know why, but she decided to approach him. "Hi," she said, offering a smile. "I don't think we've met. I'm Claire." "I'm Liam," he said, his tone friendly and easy. "Nice to meet you." They quickly fell into an easy conversation. Liam had a way of making Claire feel comfortable, as if they had known each other for years. They talked about work, life in the city, and what had brought them to the event. As the night went on, Claire realized that this unexpected encounter had turned out to be one of the most meaningful moments of the evening. She had come to the event with no expectations, but she left feeling like she had made a real connection. When the event ended, Claire felt a sense of satisfaction. She had pushed herself out of her comfort zone and had met someone new, someone who could potentially become a valuable connection in the future. As she walked home, Claire couldn't help but smile. The night had been a reminder that the journey wasn't just about work. It was about the people you meet along the way and the connections you make, no matter how small they seem. Claire's career had been steadily progressing, but deep down, she knew that the real test was still ahead. Her manager, Jason, had hinted that she might be ready for more responsibility, but Claire wasn't sure if she was ready to take that next step. One afternoon, as she was reviewing a new project proposal, Jason walked into her office with a look of determination on his face. "Claire, I need to talk to you about something," he said, pulling up a chair. "We've been thinking about you for a leadership role on the next big project. It's a big step, but I think you're ready." Claire's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure if she was prepared. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. Jason smiled reassuringly. "I'm sure. You've proven yourself time and time again. I know you can handle it. But if you're not ready yet, I understand. It's a lot to take on." Claire felt a rush of excitement mixed with fear. This was her chance to truly prove herself, but it would come with more pressure, more responsibilities, and possibly more mistakes along the way. She knew it would be hard, but deep down she couldn't pass up the opportunity. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm despite the nervousness inside her. Jason nodded, a proud smile forming on his face. "I knew you'd say that. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do." As Claire left the meeting, she couldn't shake the mix of excitement and anxiety that had settled in her chest. She had just committed to something huge, and while she felt ready in some ways, the pressure to succeed was daunting. That evening, she couldn't concentrate on anything. Her mind kept circling back to the project, the responsibility she had just accepted. She knew this was the next step in her journey, but the weight of the decision was heavy. The following week, Claire found herself deep in the planning phase of the new project. It was unlike anything she had done before. The stakes were higher and the expectations were greater. There were moments when she felt overwhelmed, moments when she questioned if she had made the right choice. One afternoon, as she was sitting in a meeting with her team, Claire's mind wandered. She couldn't focus, the pressure of the project weighing heavily on her shoulders. She had always been a perfectionist, but now that perfection seemed out of reach. Jules, who had been observing Claire's quiet struggle, leaned over and whispered, "Hey, you're doing great. But if you need help, don't be afraid to ask." "You don't have to do everything on your own." Claire nodded, grateful for her friend's support. It was easy to forget that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of strength. But the fear of failure had always been her greatest obstacle. She had spent so much time trying to prove herself that she had forgotten the power of collaboration. After the meeting, Claire took a walk to clear her mind. As she strolled through the city, she thought about everything she had achieved so far. She had made it this far despite the doubts, despite the struggles. She had proven to herself that she was capable. And this project, this challenge, was just another step. She decided to embrace the uncertainty, to stop doubting her abilities. The fear wouldn't go away, but it didn't have to control her. She would face the challenge head-on, and if she stumbled along the way, that was okay. She wasn't alone in this. The next day, Claire called a team meeting to discuss the project's progress. She took a deep breath before speaking, determined to lead with confidence. As the meeting progressed, she realized that asking for help and delegating tasks was making a difference. The project was starting to come together, and Claire could feel the weight lifting off her shoulders. As she left the meeting, Claire felt a sense of relief. The doubts weren't gone, but they no longer held her back. She was ready to take on whatever came next. The days leading up to the project's launch were some of the most stressful Claire had ever experienced. She was juggling meetings, finalizing details, and coordinating with her team, all while trying to keep up her own work. Every time she thought she had everything under control, something new came up. One afternoon, as she sat at her desk reviewing the final presentation, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jason. "Claire, we need to have a quick check-in tomorrow. The project is almost done, but we have some last-minute adjustments to make. Please be ready to discuss everything." Her heart sank. It was always something at the last minute. Claire had been working tirelessly, but the pressure was starting to take a toll on her. She had been so focused on making everything perfect that she had neglected to take care of herself. Her energy was running low and she was starting to feel burnout. The next morning, Claire arrived early at the office, her mind racing with thoughts of the meeting. When Jason walked in, he could immediately sense her exhaustion. "Hey, are you okay?" Jason asked, concern evident in his voice. Claire forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just a lot to do." Jason nodded but didn't press. Instead, he said, "Listen, I know you've been working hard. You've got this. We're just going over the final details. Let's focus on getting it right, not perfect." Claire took a deep breath. Jason was right. It wasn't about perfection, it was about progress, about doing her best and trusting the process. She had made it this far, and now it was time to finish strong. As they went over the final touches, Claire felt a surge of confidence. This was the moment she had been working toward. Team was ready, the project was nearly complete, and the end was in sight. It was time to cross the finish line. The project was finally launched, and the response exceeded everyone's expectations. Clients were impressed, feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and the team felt a sense of pride in their hard work. But for Claire, the true sense of accomplishment came not from the success of the project itself, but from the growth she had experienced along the way. As she sat in the office, reviewing the results with Jason and the team, Claire reflected on how far she had come. She had faced her doubts, overcome her fears, and led a team through one of the most challenging projects of her career. And now it was paying off. Jason smiled at Claire. "I knew you could do it. You've grown so much throughout this process. I'm proud of you." Claire smiled back, feeling a wave of gratitude and relief wash over her. "Thank you. This wouldn't have been possible without the support of the team. We did this together." It wasn't just the success of the project that made Claire proud. It was the fact that she had faced her challenges head-on and come out stronger on the other side. She had learned that success didn't come without struggle, and that asking for help was a key part of growth. As Claire left the office that evening, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had taken a leap of faith, had faced her fears, and had emerged victorious. This was only the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, but now Claire knew she was ready to face them.